Don't play with things that go boom. Lessons from My Days in Olive Drab by Clint Morey, Specialist 4th Class, Retired. Well, not actually retired. It's more like I didn't re-up. Episode 16, A Special Dinner. Now, in today's episode, I want to share a memory of an event I experienced in Vietnam. A dinner with some newly made friends. I was working in the Fire Direction Control Center on a remote mountain firebase in Vietnam. We shared the hill with some American infantry units and even a South Vietnamese artillery unit. One day, a Vietnamese soldier stepped into our bunker. Now, I don't remember that ever having happened before, but I tried to be friendly and find out what he wanted. His English was not that great, but then my Vietnamese was non-existent. Somehow, we managed to communicate with one another. He was from the Vietnamese artillery unit on our hill, and he worked in their FDC and just wanted to say hi and meet us. So, I introduced him to the members of our team and gave him a tour of our FDC. Well, tour might be a little strong. After all, our FDC consisted of one computer, a couple of radios, and our map. And I assume he had a similar setup in his FDC. We chatted for a while and then he left, and it was a pleasant interaction. Over the next several days, other men from his unit dropped by our FDC, and we became friendly with one another. I even have a picture of their group in my photo album, and there was something very unusual about their group, however. One of their men was just a kid. He couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old, and I wondered why the kid was with a military unit in the field. My Vietnamese friend explained why. The boy's father had been a member of their FDC unit. The Viet Cong had killed the boy's father, and they also killed the boy's mother, and now the boy was alone. So the soldiers in that group basically adopted him. No legal proceedings. The country didn't have a social services system like we do in the States. The kid would have been on his own. But the soldiers took care of him and made sure he was safe, even if that safety meant being in an artillery unit on a hill in Vietnam. Now, I have a couple of photographs of that group and that boy. In fact, one of the pictures is on the wall of my office. I wish I could share those photos with you, but I don't think that would be wise. Posting pictures without consent is never a good idea, but in the current communist regime in Vietnam, it might pose an additional problem. Now, even though the pictures are more than half a century old, if those men and that boy are still alive, I don't want their safety to be put at risk by posting a picture of them on the internet. And we had a great time together. Our conversations extended over a couple of visits as we shared about the challenges and experiences of our roles working in FDC. And then one day, the soldier whom I initially had given the grand tour to came over and invited us to have dinner with his group at their Fire Direction Control Center. I checked with our first lieutenant, the executive officer of our unit, and he thought it was a great idea. So on that designated day, our first lieutenant joined us as we headed across the hill to the Vietnamese FDC. They had a table set out for us and put on a first-rate spread. They treated us to a delicious meal and good conversations. Now, I had no idea what several of the items were that they served us, and I didn't ask because I wanted to be polite and enjoy everything, whatever that everything might be. They began by serving each of us a drink. Now, one of my fellow FDCers asked what it was, and we were told it was rice wine. Now, I don't drink alcohol, not because I'm against it, but because my dad was an alcoholic, and I saw what it did to him and to our family. But at that meal, I drank all the rice wine they served us. And even though it had a little bit of a kick, I told them it was wonderful and thanked them. Now remember, my goal was to be polite. The table was filled with rice and vegetables and meat. Now rice I knew about, and it tasted good. Most of the vegetables I recognized, but some I wasn't quite sure of. Still, I tried them all and thanked them for the delicious food. Now, the meat looked like chicken slices, but I had never seen chickens running around the firebase, so I wasn't really certain what it was. I didn't press the issue, however, but just enjoyed the meal. Towards the end of the meal, I was feeling brave and asked what the meat was. I was expecting him to tell me it was some exotic jungle bird. He didn't say that. Our host responded, "Dog." Now, I wasn't sure I heard him correctly, so I asked again. "Dog," he repeated. I smiled and told him it was great. I had just eaten dog. That's another memory I brought back from my time in Vietnam. Now, I did learn a couple of lessons during my time on that firebase. First, it's good to be polite. It's good to interact with people, to try to get to know them. And when they show you kindness, be gracious and thankful. Number 2, recognize when people do good things. I was impressed with the soldiers on that firebase who took over the care of a young boy who lost his parents. There was a war going on, but they were willing to put up with the responsibility of caring for someone else. I also need to be willing to help people in need who come into my life. Thanks for listening to this episode. In the next episode, I want to share with you what was perhaps the most important event in my time in Vietnam. I hope you'll come back next time for a visit. See you then.